The fluorescent lights of Chicago O'Hare Airport blurred through my tears as the TSA officer tightened his grip on my arm. My 4-year-old son Leo was screaming, reaching for me as another officer held him back. The accusations rang in my ears like a death sentence. Fraud, identity theft, stolen credit card, all because my own mother had reported me to the airline claiming I had stolen her credit card to buy tickets when, in reality, it was my card that I had given her to use years ago. The worst part wasn't the humiliation of being detained in front of hundreds of Thanksgiving travellers. It wasn't even Leo's terrified cries echoing through Terminal 3. It was the notification that lit up my phone screen as the officers led me to the interrogation room. A message in the family group chat. My sister Jessica had sent a photo of everyone gathered around the fireplace, wine glasses, raised faces glowing with smug satisfaction. The caption read, "Oops, heard you got banned from flying. Don't worry, we'll eat your share of the turkey. Enjoy Chicago, you failure." Below that, my mother, Brenda, had added, "Don't bother coming home unless you bring expensive gifts. By the way, I already cashed in that business class ticket and bought Jessica a new bag with the money." If you're enjoying this story of justice and revenge, please hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in this situation. Your support means everything and helps me continue sharing these powerful stories. Let me take you back to where it all began 6 months before that nightmare at the airport. I had always been the responsible one, the eldest daughter who put herself through college while working 3 jobs, the one who sent money home every month even when I could barely afford groceries for myself and Leo. My father, Frank, had a gambling problem that had drained the family savings, and my mother, Brenda, had developed a shopping addiction to cope with the stress. My younger sister, Jessica, was the golden child, the princess, who could do no wrong in their eyes. I graduated from business school with honours and started my own design consulting firm. It wasn't glamorous at first. I worked from a cramped studio apartment, often staying up until 3 a.m, finishing projects while Leo slept in his crib beside my desk. But I was good at what I did, and slowly clients started to notice. Within 3 years, my company was bringing in 6 figures annually. I never told my family about my success. Something inside me, perhaps some lingering self-preservation instinct, kept me from revealing the truth about my finances. To them, I was still struggling Sarah. Poor Sarah who worked too hard. Sarah who dressed in simple clothes from Target and drove a 10-year-old Honda. Sarah who would always say yes when they asked for money, which was constantly. Need $500 for Mum's hair appointment at that fancy salon. Sure. $1,000 for Dad's poker debt. Of course. $2,000 for Jessica's designer handbag that she absolutely had to have. I'll transfer it right away. The pattern had been established since childhood. Jessica was born when I was 12, and from the moment she arrived, the dynamic shifted. She was the miracle baby, the beautiful blonde angel, who could charm anyone with her smile. I became invisible, just the older sister, whose job was to take care of everyone else. My mother would say things like, "Sarah is strong, she doesn't need attention like Jessica does." My father would add, "You're the responsible one, we can count on you to handle things." I internalized those messages. I believed that my worth came from how useful I was to them, how much I could sacrifice, how little I complained. Even when I got pregnant at 23 with Leo, after a brief relationship that didn't work out, my family's reaction was predictable. My mother cried about the shame I had brought to the family. My father refused to speak to me for 6 months. Jessica told all her friends that her sister was a cautionary tale about poor life choices. But Leo became my anchor, my reason to build something better. I poured everything into my business and into being the mother I wished I had. He never went without, even if that meant I did. He never felt unloved, even though I was drowning in exhaustion. And through it all, I kept sending money home, kept accepting their criticism, kept hoping that one day they would see me as more than just a wallet and a workhorse. 6 months before Thanksgiving, things started to escalate. Jessica had graduated from college, a degree paid for entirely by me through a series of loans that we all knew would never be repaid. She moved back home and immediately started complaining about her situation on social media. Poor Jessica, stuck in her parents' house, forced to look for entry-level jobs when she deserved so much better. She started a YouTube channel about fashion and lifestyle, positioning herself as an influencer, despite having no real income. Then came the phone call that should have been my first clear warning. My mother called on a Tuesday afternoon, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Sarah, honey, I have a wonderful idea. Why don't you let me manage your credit cards for you? You're so busy with work, and little Leo and I could help you keep track of your spending, make sure you're being responsible with money." Something about the request felt wrong, but the old programming kicked in. Be helpful, be accommodating, don't make waves. So I gave her one of my credit cards with a $50,000 limit, a business card I used for company expenses. It was supposed to be for emergencies only. She promised she would never use it without asking first. Within a week, the charges started appearing. A $2,000 handbag for Jessica, a $500 dinner at a steakhouse for the whole family. Except me, of course, I wasn't invited. $800 at a spa. When I called to ask about it, my mother got defensive. "We're family, Sarah. What's yours is ours. Besides, you make good money. Don't be so selfish." I tried to set boundaries. I really did. I explained that the card was for business expenses and that I needed to keep track of every charge for tax purposes. My mother's response was to cry and tell me I had changed, that success had made me cold and heartless. My father got on the phone and accused me of thinking I was better than them now. Jessica posted a vague status on Facebook about fake people who get a little money and forget where they came from. The guilt crushed me. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I was overreacting. So I let it go, and the charges continued. Over the next few months, they racked up nearly $30,000 in purchases. Designer clothes, expensive electronics, even a small renovation to their kitchen. Every time I brought it up, I was gaslit. I was told I was being dramatic, that I was ungrateful, that after everything they had done for me, this was how I repaid them. What they didn't know was that the house they were living in, the house where they were spending my money on renovations, was actually mine. 5 years earlier, when my father's gambling debts had reached a critical point, the bank had started foreclosure proceedings. I had been secretly saving money, and I had enough to buy the property outright through an LLC I created. I structured it as a rental property, charging them $1 a month in rent, just enough to keep the legal paperwork valid. They had no idea. They thought some anonymous investor had bought the house and was generously letting them stay for almost nothing. I told myself I did it to protect them, to give them stability, without them knowing it came from me. But deep down, I think I knew even then that I might need this secret someday. I might need this leverage. The Thanksgiving invitation came in October. My mother called, and I could hear the forced enthusiasm in her voice. "Sarah, we're having a big Thanksgiving celebration this year. You should come home. Bring Leo. It's been too long since we've all been together as a family." I wanted to believe that this was a genuine olive branch. I wanted to believe that maybe things could be different, that maybe they actually wanted to see me and my son, not just access to my wallet. So I booked on 2 business class tickets on my credit card, the same card I had given my mother. It was expensive, over $3,000 for the round trip, but I thought it would be worth it for Leo to spend the holiday with his grandparents and aunt. 2 weeks before the flight, I noticed something odd. A notification from my credit card company about a refund. $3,200 had been credited back to my account. Confused, I called the airline. The customer service representative explained that my tickets had been cancelled and refunded. I told them there must be a mistake, I hadn't cancelled anything. That's when they explained that the cardholder, Brenda Morrison, had called to cancel the tickets and had specifically requested that the refund be issued in cash to her directly, rather than back to the card. I felt something crack inside me. This wasn't just thoughtlessness or poor boundaries. This was calculated theft. This was my own mother stealing from me and then lying about it. I called her immediately. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding annoyed. "What is it?" "Sarah, I'm busy." "Mom, Did you cancel my plane tickets? Oh, that. Her voice was casual, unconcerned. Yes, business class was wasteful. If you want to come for Thanksgiving, you can take the bus or find a cheaper flight. I used that money to buy Jessica a handbag she's been wanting. She deserves nice things. The words hit me like a physical blow. That was my money. Those were tickets for me and your grandson to come to see you. Don't be dramatic. You make plenty of money, and honestly, Jessica needs it more than you do. She's young and trying to build her image for her channel. You already have everything. I hung up without another word. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to sit down. Leo came over concerned, wrapping his small arms around my neck. Mummy, sad, he asked in his sweet little voice. I held him close and made a decision. I called in James, my lawyer, someone I trusted completely. We had worked together when I set up my LLC years ago, and he had become a good friend. I explained everything, and for a long moment he was silent. Then he said something that changed everything. Sarah, you know you don't have to keep doing this. You have options. Let me draw up some papers. Over the next 2 weeks, James and I prepared. We gathered documents, reviewed contracts, and created what we called the Phoenix File. It contained the deed to the house, the rental agreement proof of all the money transfers, and several recordings. I had started recording phone conversations with my family months ago, initially, just to protect myself in case they ever accused me of not sending money or not keeping promises. I had dozens of conversations where they said terrible things, where they plotted how to extract more money from me, where they laughed about how gullible I was. I rebooked flights for Thanksgiving, at the last minute expensive economy seats on a different airline using a different credit card. I didn't tell my family. Let them think I had given up. Let them think I was too poor or too ashamed to come after what my mother had done. The day before Thanksgiving, I received an email from the original airline. I had been flagged for suspicious activity. My mother had reported to the airline that I had stolen her credit card to purchase the cancelled tickets. She told them I was attempting fraud. The airline had placed me on a watch list and TSA had been notified. I forwarded the email to James. His response was immediate. This is beyond redemption, Sarah. Are you ready to move forward with everything? I typed back a single word. Yes. The next morning, I packed our bags and headed to the airport with Leo. I knew what was waiting for me. James had warned me that the TSA report was active. But I needed this confrontation. I needed them to see how far they were willing to go. That's how I ended up detained at O'Hare with my son screaming and my phone lighting up with those mocking messages. The TSA officers were professional but firm. They explained that I was being held for questioning regarding fraudulent use of a credit card. I showed them my identification, my credit card statements, proof that the card was mine. But the process takes time and they had to verify everything. I sat in that small grey room for 2 hours while Leo was taken to a family waiting area with a social services representative. Every minute felt like an eternity. I kept looking at my phone at those messages from my family. They thought they had won. They thought they had finally broken me, humiliated me enough that I would never bother them again. Then James arrived. He strode into the airport security office like he owned the place, carrying a briefcase and wearing his most expensive suit. He presented documentation to the officers, including proof that I was the legitimate cardholder and that my mother had filed a false report. He also handed them a letter from the credit card company confirming that Brenda Morrison was an authorized user on my account but had exceeded her authority by filing a fraudulent claim. The TSA officers apologized. They had detained me based on false information. They brought Leo back to me, and I held him so tight he squirmed. James put a hand on my shoulder. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. I wiped my tears and looked at him. My voice came out cold, harder than I had ever heard it. "Activate the Phoenix File. I'm done waiting. Take back everything." James nodded and made several phone calls right there in the airport. I didn't take the bus. I didn't take a cheaper flight. James had arranged for a massive black pickup truck that looked like it could drive through a brick wall. It was a statement, a message. I'm not defeated. I'm coming, and I'm bringing everything with me. We drove through the night, Leo sleeping in his car seat in the back, while I gripped the steering wheel and watched the miles disappear. The landscape changed from city to suburbs to the small town where I had grown up. Snow had started to fall thick and heavy, coating everything in white. It was 2 a.m. when we pulled onto their street, my street though, they didn't know it. The house was lit up like a Christmas display. I could see through the large front windows. There were people everywhere, at least 30 guests. My mother was holding court in the living room, wearing a new dress that probably cost $500. My father was at the makeshift bar pouring drinks. And Jessica, my beautiful baby sister, was standing in the centre of a group of her friends, showing off a designer handbag that I recognised immediately. The one my mother had bought with my refunded ticket money. I parked the truck right in front of the house, blocking the driveway. James had driven separately and was parking down the street. I had asked him to stay back for the initial confrontation. This needed to be just me at first. I didn't knock. I walked straight in, carrying Leo in my arms. The blast of warm air and the smell of roasted turkey hit me as I crossed the threshold. Conversation stopped. People turned to stare. My mother's face went white, then red with rage. "What the hell are you doing here?" she hissed, rushing toward me. "I thought you were stuck in Chicago." "Clearly not," I said calmly, setting Leo down. He immediately ran toward my father, excited to see his grandfather despite everything. Children are so forgiving. Jessica spotted me, and her expression shifted from surprise to smug satisfaction. She held up her wrist, showing off a bracelet. "Look, Sarah Mum got me this too. Isn't it gorgeous? It's the same designer as the bag." I looked at the bracelet. I knew exactly how much it cost because I had seen the charge on my statement. $1,800. "Beautiful," I said flatly. My father had frozen drink in hand, watching the scene unfold. Leo had reached him and was tugging on his pants leg, but Frank wasn't paying attention. He was staring at me, and for the first time I saw something like fear in his eyes. "You need to leave," my mother said loudly, making sure all the guests could hear. "This is a private party. You weren't invited." "Really? Because I got an invitation. Remember you called me in October and told me to come home for Thanksgiving." "That was before you stole from me." My mother shot back. "That was before you tried to use my credit card without permission." The room erupted in whispers. I could hear people murmuring, could feel them looking at me with suspicion and judgment. Poor Brenda, dealing with such a difficult daughter. How embarrassing. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "That's an interesting story, Mum. Want to tell everyone here how that credit card you're talking about is actually mine. How you've been using it for months without my permission. How you stole $3,000 from me and used it to buy Jessica gifts." "You gave me that card!" my mother shrieked. "You said I could use it for emergencies, not for designer handbags and kitchen renovations." Jessica stepped forward, her face twisted with anger. "You're so selfish, Sarah. We're your family. You're supposed to help us. But no, you have to keep track of every little penny like some kind of miser." "Every little penny?" I laughed, but there was no humour in it. "Jessica, in the last 3 years, I have given this family over $200,000. I paid for your entire college education. I paid off Dad's gambling debts twice. I've covered Mum's shopping addiction, your car payments, your insurance, your rent when you lived in that apartment downtown. And you call me selfish." The room had gone completely silent. Jessica's face was bright red. "You're lying. You don't have that kind of money. You're just trying to make us look bad." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning the screen toward the guests. "Would you like to see the transaction history?" My father finally moved. He set his drink down hard enough that liquid sloshed over the rim. "Sarah, that's enough. You're making a scene. If you can't be civil, you need to leave right now." "Leave?" I looked around the room, at all the expensive decorations, the catered food, the designer outfits my family was wearing. Leave my own house. The words hung in the air like a bomb. My mother's face went slack. Jessica looked confused. My father took a step forward, his hand raised as if to push me toward the door. That's when James entered. He was followed by 2 security guards I had hired for the evening, large men in dark suits. Behind them were 2 police officers. My father's hand dropped. "What is this?" my mother demanded, but her voice was shaky now. James walked to the center of the room and opened his briefcase. He pulled out a stack of documents and placed them on the dining table right next to the elaborate turkey centerpiece. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption of your evening. My name is James Mitchell, and I'm Ms. Morrison's attorney. I need to inform you all that this property is owned by my client, Sarah Morrison, and has been for the past 5 years." The gasps from the guests were audible. Jessica actually stumbled backward. My mother was shaking her head. "That's impossible. That investor bought this house. We've been renting from them." "The investor," James said clearly, "is a limited liability company wholly owned by Sarah Morrison. Your lease agreement, which you signed 5 years ago, had very specific terms. One of those terms was that you would not engage in fraud, theft, or any activity that could bring legal liability to the property owner." I walked over to the table and picked up the top document. It was the deed, my name clearly printed as the owner. I held it up so everyone could see. 5 years ago, when Dad's gambling debts nearly destroyed this family, I bought this house. I saved it from foreclosure. I let you stay here for $1 a month because I wanted you to have a home. I never told you because I didn't want you to feel indebted or ashamed. My mother's legs seemed to give out. She sank onto the couch, her face ashen. "You bought the house. You've been our landlord this whole time." "Yes, and you violated the lease agreement in multiple ways, but the final straw was filing a false police report and attempting to have me arrested for fraud, when you were the one who stole from me." Jessica lunged toward me, her face contorted with rage. "You bitch! This is our home. You can't just take it away." One of the security guards stepped between us. Jessica tried to push past him to get to me, but he was immovable. That's when Leo started crying. All the shouting had scared him. I immediately went to him, scooping him up, but as I turned, I saw Jessica grab a glass of wine from the table and move toward me. My mother screamed. Time seemed to slow down. Jessica was aiming for me, but Leo was in my arms. Before the glass could leave her hand, one of the police officers grabbed her wrist. The wine spilled all over her expensive dress. "That's assault," the officer said firmly. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down right now." The room erupted in chaos. Guests were backing toward the door, clearly wanting to distance themselves from the drama. My father was yelling at the officers, demanding to know what authority they had to be here. My mother was crying hysterically on the couch. James raised his voice above the commotion. "Everyone, please. I need you all to listen. This is now an official eviction proceeding. Ms. Morrison has provided evidence of lease violations, including fraud, theft, and attempted assault in the presence of a minor. The police are here as witnesses and to ensure everyone's safety." I walked over to the sound system, where someone had been playing soft holiday music. I connected my phone via Bluetooth. "Before we proceed," I said loudly, "I think everyone here should know the truth about this family." I pressed a play. The first recording was from 3 months ago. My mother's voice crystal clear through the expensive speakers. "Jessica, I'm telling you, we need to milk her for everything we can. Sarah is so desperate for our approval, she'll give us anything. Just keep telling her you need things and she'll keep paying." Jessica's voice responded. "But what if she gets suspicious?" "She won't. She's weak. She's always been weak. That's why she'll never amount to anything real. She might have money, but she doesn't have any spine." The guests stared at the speakers in horror. One woman actually put her hand over her mouth. I let it play for another 30 seconds, then switched to another recording. This one was my father talking to my mother. "If we can keep her sending money for another year or 2, we can pay off everything and never have to deal with her again. She thinks she's buying our love, but the joke's on her. She'll never have it." I stopped the playback. The silence in the room was deafening. My mother was no longer crying. She was staring at me with pure hatred. Jessica had gone completely pale. "You recorded us," my mother whispered. "You recorded private conversations." "I protected myself," I corrected. "And it's a good thing I did because you tried to have me arrested based on lies." One of the police officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, I need to inform you that you have 30 minutes to collect essential personal belongings. This is an emergency eviction based on safety concerns and lease violations. You'll need to vacate the premises immediately." My father exploded. 30 minutes in the middle of Thanksgiving in a snowstorm. Where are we supposed to go? "That's not my concern, sir," the officer said firmly. "You have 30 minutes up." I looked at James. He nodded. I walked to the front door and held it open. "Anyone who was invited to this party needs to leave now. This is no longer a social gathering." The guests fled like rats from a sinking ship. They grabbed their coats and hurried out into the snow, several of them pulling out their phones to immediately start texting about what they had witnessed. Good. Let the whole town know. Let everyone see what kind of people my family really were. When the last guest had left, I closed the door and turned to face my family. They looked small, suddenly diminished. My father was pacing, muttering about lawyers and lawsuits. My mother was staring at nothing, tears running down her face. Jessica was frantically texting on her phone. "Who are you texting?" I asked her. "None of your business," she snapped. I walked over and glanced at her screen. She was texting her boyfriend, begging him to come pick them up, asking if they could stay with him. Even as I watched, his response came through. "Sorry, Jess, my parents said no. Heard what happened. Can't believe you guys treated your sister like that." Jessica threw her phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. "This is your fault," she screamed at me. "You've ruined everything. My followers, my friends, everyone is going to know about this." "Yes," I said simply. "They are." My father finally stopped pacing and looked at me. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. "Sarah, please. You can't do this. We're your family. Where will we go?" I don't know, Dad. Where did you think I would go when Mum tried to have me arrested at the airport? Where did you think Leo and I would spend Thanksgiving after you cancelled our tickets? "That was different," my mother said weakly. "We weren't going to let you actually go to jail. We just wanted to teach you a lesson about being more generous." I laughed, and it sounded harsh, even to my own ears. "Teach me a lesson about being generous. I have given you everything. I gave you money, time, energy, forgiveness, and chances, over and over again, and you took it all and asked for more. You called me weak. You called me gullible. You told your friends I was a failure while wearing clothes I paid for in a house I bought, eating food I made possible. We're your parents," my father said. "We raised you. We gave you life. You owe us. I owed you love and respect because you were my parents, but you didn't give me those things. You gave me criticism, manipulation, and exploitation. So, no, Dad, I don't owe you anything anymore." The police officer checked his watch. 15 minutes remaining. My family scattered, rushing to gather belongings. I stood in the living room with Leo, who had calmed down and was now looking around with wide eyes. James stood beside me, making notes on his tablet. "The car?" my father said suddenly. "I'm taking the car." James shook his head. "The vehicle is registered to Ms. Morrison's company. It's a company asset. You cannot take it." "What?" My father's voice rose to a shout. "That's my car. I've been driving it for 3 years." "And Ms. Morrison has been paying for it," James replied calmly. "Insurance, maintenance, registration. It's her property." I walked to the key hook by the door and took down the car keys. My father's face turned purple with rage. "You're really going to do this? You're going to leave us with nothing?" "You have your clothes," I said. "You have your phones, though. I'll be disconnecting service on them tomorrow since I've been paying those bills too. You have whatever money you've managed to hide away, if any. That's more than nothing." Jessica came down the stairs dragging 2 large suitcases. They were designer bags, of course, probably worth $1,000 each. She stopped when she saw me watching her. What? These are mine. Open them, I said. No, you can't tell me what to do. One of the officers stepped forward. Ma'am, this is the property owner's request. Please open the bags. Jessica's hand shook as she unzipped the first suitcase. It was packed with designer clothes, shoes, handbags. I recognized most of the items because I had seen the charges on my credit card statement. Those aren't yours, I said quietly. Those were purchased with my stolen credit card. You gave Mum the card for emergencies, not for building you a designer wardrobe. I turned to James. Contact the credit card company. Report all these purchases as fraudulent. I want every charge reversed. Jessica's face crumpled. No, you can't. These are my things. They're all I have. Then you should have thought of that before you participated in stealing from me. My mother appeared from the kitchen, carrying a small box. She walked slowly toward me, and for a moment I thought maybe finally she was going to apologize. Instead, she spit at my feet. You're dead to me, she hissed. You were always a disappointment, but now you're a monster. No mother would do this to her own family. I looked down at the spittle on the hardwood floor. You're right, I said softly. No real mother would. But then again, a real mother wouldn't try to have her daughter arrested. A real mother wouldn't steal from her grandchild. So, I guess we're both failing at this family thing. The police officer cleared his throat. Time's up. Everyone needs to exit the property now. They left with 3 black garbage bags full of clothes and a few boxes of personal items. No fancy suitcases, no designer bags, no electronics that I had paid for. Just the bare minimum. They stood on the front lawn in the falling snow, the 3 of them looking lost and broken. My mother turned back one more time. She fell to her knees in the snow, her hands clasped together. Sarah, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was trying to teach you to be frugal, to not be wasteful with your money. We're family. Please, don't do this. I walked to the front door. For a moment, I remembered being a little girl, desperately wanting my mother's approval, willing to do anything to hear her say she was proud of me. I remembered countless nights staying up late, helping with homework, with chores, trying so hard to be perfect. I remembered the first time I sent her money, how happy it made her, how good it felt to finally be useful. I looked down at her now kneeling in the snow and felt nothing but cold certainty. You know what you taught me, Mum? You taught me that some people are liabilities, not assets. You taught me that emotional manipulation is the cheapest currency there is. You taught me that blood relation means nothing without respect and love. Thank you for that lesson. It was expensive, but worth every penny. I closed the door. Through the window, I watched them stand there for another minute before my father finally pulled my mother to her feet. They started walking down the street, dragging their garbage bags behind them, disappearing into the white curtain of falling snow. James started making calls, arranging for locks to be changed immediately, for security cameras to be installed, for all my accounts and cards to be secured. Leo fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from the long day. I sat beside him, stroking his hair, feeling something shift inside me. Over the next few days, the fallout was spectacular. Jessica's boyfriend dumped her the same night, telling his friends he didn't want to be associated with someone who would treat family that way. Her social media following vanished as people heard the recordings I had played. My father's poker buddies stopped calling. My mother's book club friends suddenly had no time for her. They tried to reach out, of course. Texts, calls, messages on social media. My mother sent an email 2 weeks later saying my father was sick and needed money for medical bills. I blocked the email address. Jessica showed up at my office building, but security turned her away. My father actually tried to sue me for wrongful eviction, but his lawyer dropped the case once James showed him all the evidence of fraud and theft. 3 months later, I sold the house. The market was hot, and I got double what I had paid for it. I used the money to buy a beachfront property in California, a fresh start for Leo and me. The house was bright and open with huge windows that looked out over the Pacific Ocean. We spent our days building sandcastles and our evenings watching the sunset. One afternoon, as Leo played in the waves, my phone buzzed. an unknown number. The text message read, "Sarah, it's your mother. Your father is very sick. We've been living in a shelter. Please, just a little money to help. You're all we have." I stared at that message for a long time. I thought about everything that had happened, about all the years of manipulation and lies. I thought about the little girl I used to be desperate for crumbs of affection. I thought about the woman I had become strong and successful despite them, not because of them. I opened the text and my finger hovered over the keyboard. For just a second, that old conditioning kicked in, the urge to help, to sacrifice, to be the bigger person. Then, I looked up at Leo, laughing as a wave splashed over his feet, and I knew what I had to do. I pressed the block button. Then, I turned off my phone, walked down to the beach, and joined my son in the water. I learned something crucial through this entire experience. Real family doesn't exploit you. Real love doesn't come with conditions and price tags. And the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. When you finally learn to value yourself the way you deserve, when you stop accepting crumbs and start demanding respect, that's when your real life begins. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see your worth. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is freedom from toxic relationships, even when those relationships are tied to you by blood. So tell me, have you ever had to cut ties with toxic family members? How did you find the strength to put yourself first? Drop your story, just tree in the comments below. Hit that like button if this resonated with you, and subscribe for more real stories about standing up for yourself and breaking free from manipulation. Your support helps me continue sharing these important experiences. What would you have done differently in my situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts.